Hey guys, I'm back. Mike Robin here. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to like and subscribe. So today we're going to be talking about how to generate leads with Meta lead form ads. Meta has made some updates to lead form ads and restrictions, things you can't do and can't do. In my opinion, with the options that Meta allows to generate leads, let's say a messenger campaign over a lead form, I would go with a lead form, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. I do like sending people to a website. I have had a lot of success with that. But for small businesses, if you're a business looking to generate leads within a 10 to 30 mile radius, even a 40-mile radius, for instance, I would go with a lead format to start off. And if you start seeing success with what you're doing, maybe you can transition to a website. For me, I like to do websites when I'm doing either an entire state, multiple states, or nationwide. I think those work very, very well for website traffic because you have so much more people you can market to. So one of the downsides is that most people don't know, especially on the local level, is you're limited. And if you have no campaign data and you have no idea what works, you're making it really hard for Meta to learn your audience. So in essence, it's going to take more time for you to generate a lead. Okay. But with a bigger audience, bigger territory, what ends up happening is the pixel can learn a lot quicker who your ideal customer is. And it can start generating leads quickly with a website when you have a bigger territory. At least that's how I've seen it in my experience. And when I mean talking about generating leads for a website, I'm talking about for $1 or less, $3 sometimes, ideally less than $10 with a website. Okay. But that has been with bigger territories. So if you're okay with a higher CPL on a local level, go with it. Me personally, I don't think that it necessarily generates a better lead. I think it's really just going to be on your preference. And I'll talk a little bit about that as well as I go through the build out. So one very important thing to do before you get started is you're going to come in here. Again, I'm not showing you how to build a campaign. I'm simply showing you how to use the lead format. So if you want to learn how to build a campaign, you can always reach out and book a call. But the settings and in the settings, a lot of people don't know this, but your campaign can be restricted. And what that means is, let's say you go and create an audience and you want, and somebody wants to now share your ad, and it could potentially be outside of the audience, whether it be location or just the audience that you're looking to target within Meta, they won't have the option to do that. Okay. But when it's open, as you can see here, it can be shared with anyone. Now, there are some obvious drawbacks, right? So, for instance, if I'm a local business and someone is local, but they share with their audience, and maybe they're from another city or another area in the country or the world, for instance, but mostly the country, now someone who could be, let's say, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, but I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, is potentially could see my ad in Kalamazoo, Michigan, because the person who shared it has family, friends, coworkers, whatever in Kalamazoo, Michigan, right? So this is some of the things that people don't understand. However, they also can be restricted to share it on a local level as well in the event that, let's say, they have a very small friends list on Facebook, right? So let's say they have 100 people, 50 people, 200, whatever. They're not really super big on Facebook. They're just, kind of checking it every now and again. Well, they will be restricted. Now, I learned this when I was running a campaign maybe 4 years ago, and someone commented on the ad and they said, "Hey, can you make it?" Uh, I think they said public, or can you make it shareable? Is what they said, and I didn't know what they meant at first. And then I came in here and said, "Oh, if I do this," and let me tell you something, the volume of leads, because when you have a good ad, people want to share it, so it makes a big difference. Okay, so you want to toggle this to open, all right, and just click done. Okay, just click done. Give it a title. I'm not going to title this because I'm just making this for you for the purpose of the training, but give it a title. I always default to more volume, and I'll talk about that in a minute. This is something I have tested, but this is not something that I'm super concerned about. Let me tell you why. Meta is not a place that people come to looking for your product or service. Okay? They're not here for your product or service. And Because they're not here looking for your product or service, basically means it doesn't matter how many ways you want to go about getting what you might consider the best lead in the world. That's not going to make a difference. Okay, I've tested this. Okay, what I'm showing you here is what's going to make some of the differences. Okay, so and you want volume, right? You want more leads because the more leads you have, the more opportunities you have to sell your service, right? Or your clients to sell their services. Okay, so you want to go with more volume. All right. And then flexible, yes. Allow Meta to adjust, remove elements, optimize. That's fine, right? In some instances, you may not want it, but we're not going to add a lot of questions. But in this case, we're gonna add our system here. So let's go into the intro. Now, I've done a lot with home services, okay? But whatever you're promoting, you want it to match. So let's say we're promoting home services, that will typically be getting a free quote, right? That means a roofer, a painter, a window contractor, tree contractor, right? Carpet cleaning, whatever it may be. Well, carpet cleaning would be different. Carpet cleaning would be directly tied to the promotion that you're running. And if you're promoting something specific, you might want to tie it to that. So, for instance, in carpet cleaning, maybe you're doing like 3 rooms for 150 or 200. Keep it aligned to that, right? But in other services where the customer is not making a direct offer, like they have to get a quote, right? You could type something here like get a free quote. Okay. Now, going back to what I mentioned earlier for local businesses and how we turned on in the settings open, one of the drawbacks is that you need to make it very clear about who you're serving. So let's just say in this case, serving Metro Atlanta. So anyone who's not in Metro Atlanta, right, would see this and say, okay, I'm not in Metro Atlanta. I'm in another part of Georgia, all right, or I'm in another part where this is not Metro Atlanta. But let's say you serve some of the surrounding cities, like I don't know if Marietta is considered, but like Marietta, Alpharetta, etc. You would want to list out some of the cities that you service, and then make it. Um, so let me just list it. I don't know a lot of them, but these are I have clients in these areas, so. Think Dunwoody. I thought no, I think Dunwoody has two ends. Dunwoody. I could be wrong. It could be one. I don't know. Dunwoody, Alpharetta. Uh-oh. And I'll just leave it at that. There's plenty of other cities that you can go with. Yeah, there's plenty of other cities you can go with. Probably spelled that wrong. I don't know. And then make it 100% clear, right? You know, in Georgia, right? So that way, if someone, and again, you still may get someone that's not paying attention, doesn't read this, and comes through. But the percentage is a lot lower. Okay, that's something to really understand. And we didn't go into setting up our radius, right? But the percentages of people is a lot lower because in there's actually something that you need to also toggle where you're not targeting people, who are like people that in and around your like or your desired area. That's usually how Facebook is wording it. You just toggle it off, and for me it works pretty good. But again, you have to set that part up. We're just going over lead forms right now. Okay, so this is essentially how you would do it. Now, let's go into next. Let's go into our questions. So what I like to do with questions, I've tested these things. Um, let me turn this off. I don't think that they're necessary because again, we want to get the lead. Like this is the most important thing. You want to get the lead. In some instances, you can get away from people that are not super serious, but that's going to really come down to your ad copy and the offer that you're giving people, in my experience. Okay? So that's going to require you to test that. And in instances where you see a disconnects, and I'm going to talk about that because what I'm showing you here has consistently for the last 3.5 years gotten at least 80% or a little better of people on the phone that have filled out a lead form. So this is not something that I've done for 30 days, 60 days. This is something that we've done for over 3.5 years. 80% or better on Facebook leads, pretty good. And for contractors, booked appointments. Once we get them on the phone, we book. We don't have issues booking appointments, getting their address, setting up the appointment. So this is a strategy that works very, very well. And I'll talk about what didn't work well in a moment. So one of the questions, I'm not going to give you the question, but I'm going to tell you about it. One of the questions that you want is you need to ask the person what is their phone number. That's not the wording that's going to be allowed. Facebook used to allow that exact wording, but they've changed it. You have to find a unique way that Facebook will allow it for you. Reason I'm not giving it away is because then obviously everyone's going to be using it, and who knows? Maybe Meta will be like, oh, we're seeing this too consistently. We're going to not allow this wording as well. So I have found a way to get around it, and with that wording that I've been able to use, that has allowed us to consistently get people's phone numbers. Now, why do you want to ask that question? Well, most people who use Meta do not have their default phone number as their real phone number. So, for instance, like mine is like a 55555 number, right? So, what ends up happening, if you're not aware of this, this number, and you can even see optional, you want to make sure you toggle that off because in that other setting that you saw there, where Facebook can rotate what they show people, they would then remove this and see do people convert more with the phone number, without a phone number, etc. But one of the things about it is this is going to be their default number. So if people are going very, very quickly and they're not paying attention, sometimes they're going to submit the form with their default number and not their actual number. So that's something that you really want to pay attention to. And that is why we ask people, and I'll just put it in here. This is not what I would write because Meta will um, not allow the lead form to get approved. But what is your phone number is basically a question that you want to ask. And this allows the person to, number one, slow down, make a decision. Do I really want to give you my phone number? So we have had a lot of success with people giving it up because, again, they want to get a quote for something, right? Or whatever it is you're promoting. If you see a disconnect, there's usually a lack of trust or what you're offering is not attractive enough for people to give up their information, right? Description, this is very important. You want to basically tell people, right, why they're giving you their information. So in this case, we will use this information to contact you for your free quote. Okay, so that's exactly what you're going to do, right? We will use this that was even written right. Let me see here. Jeez. All right. I don't like to use full name because what Meta does is Meta pulls, just have allergies, so I apologize, but Meta pulls their default name. So if you ever use this before, you see like weird names coming over, like, you know, just like, Tom the Pizza Guy or Johnny Smith Knight, some weird stuff. Like it's because Meta is pulling their Facebook name, not their actual first and last name that they have on their Facebook account. Okay, that's usually why. And then obviously people can change it, but we typically get very accurate names. I would say it's a small percentage where you get their aliases and such. But if you leave it to full name, it will give you their alias, right? So that's really important. You can put their first and last name here, and then for local services, you want to go with city. I still like to do city and state if I was going to test this, let's say nationwide or even a couple of states, because there might be different things. Like, for instance, the state of Texas, they don't allow SMS to go out without, I believe, some type of consent, right? So you would want to know that. And if you have a CRM, you would want your CRM to know that as well. So, and if you're in Texas, then and you're doing it local, then you know right away. But city state is really important to know sometimes. But for a local business, I'm not too concerned about state. I just want to know their city that they're in because we're doing roughly a 20-mile radius anyway. And then we can know where they're located within that geo. That's it. Okay. And as you can see here, too many questions may reduce form submission. So these are auto-filled. So the user is not having to fill this in. Now, when you go high intent, they do have to fill all their information in. All right. And now what you want to do is let's go to privacy policy. So you want to use your privacy policy link from your website. And then this is really important. Add a custom disclaimer. So the reason you want to have a custom disclaimer is because there's a lot of TCPA rules that are and laws that are in place, and you just want to make sure you protect yourself. And basically, you can always Google what to put in here, but something like, by submitting this form, you agree for let's just say your Facebook page. If you're using an alias, it would be your Facebook page, and obviously the real business name and or its partners, right? To contact you via phone call, email, SMS, and or automated services in regards to what it is, a roofing quote, a tree service quote, whatever it is you're promoting. This is really important because it will protect you in the event that you have any issues with legal, okay? But that's basically how you would put it in there. I'm not going to put it in there because I'm just showing you guys, but that's what, and it would read right here. And then once you have everything in here, you just go to next. Now this is where the next step is. This is where you want to get serious because most people undervalue this real estate. And again, lead generation is just about how much emphasis you put in each real estate that you have where someone sees something to move them closer to the next step. Okay. So in here, what works really well is telling someone what is going to happen next. It's very important because typically what happens is you generate a lead and your team is now stampeding calling this person and they were unaware that anyone was going to call them. So now they don't answer their phone. And you're sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is a bad lead." No. Listen, people people in 2026, right, are so skeptical and they have short-term memory. They forget they even opted in for something. And now their phone is ringing like, "Who's calling me?" So they even have phone, like what do they call them? Phone screeners, right? So you probably, if you notice, you call a number and it says, "Please say your name and why you're calling." They have these phone screening technology now. And with that technology, they can hear who you are before you're calling. So what you want to do here is tell them what will happen next. I find headlines like this, um, almost done, or we will call you within 2 minutes or 60 seconds, 5 minutes, wait, don't leave your phone, stay next to your phone, or something like this. Again, this is not the exact uh, writing because I'm not giving you the exact, I'm just telling you an example of what we do. So this isn't, oh, so this is just an example of something that I would probably write in here because this, again, this is what they're going to see. Now you can make this much longer if you really want to. Okay. That's something you're going to have to test. Again, that's your marketing skills, right? That's where you're generating a lead and you're not leaving any stone unturned. Now, the next thing is this little puppy right here, additional action. So this is not an ad account that I use regularly because each one of them are a little different. Sometimes they give you the option for starting a conversation, but they put it in here. And what that does, and I don't know if everyone has it down here, it used to not be in a lot of ad accounts because I have several and some would have it and some didn't. If you have this feature, toggle this on. The next thing that you want to add is I wouldn't say send people to your website. I would probably do if you don't have, because usually they'll give you start a conversation or send them to Messenger in here. I don't know exactly what it says, but it's going to be one or the other. And you want to either choose call business, and once you put a number in right here, yeah, it's going to be call now, and then start conversation on Messenger. This one is very valuable because what's going to happen is when they submit that form, they're going to get an instant message of what they submitted in their messenger, and you, the business, will see it as well. Okay. But calling the business is very important because let's say they want to call you now, so you just put your phone number in, you can get them on the phone. All right. I haven't tested WhatsApp, but that would be very good if you have WhatsApp because then you can just connect with them there as well. Um, okay, not done yet. We're getting there. So now we went over the form. And then once this is done, you know basically I would just save this as a draft, but that's basically it. You would save it. Now, the whole idea is to get them on the phone. Listen to me. You have to run these campaigns primarily during business hours because if you're running campaigns in the wee hours of the night, nobody is able to get in contact with them because you're sleeping. So I like to run campaigns typically from 7 a.m. to 8, maybe 9 in the local time, probably 8 because you're not calling someone at 9 o'clock at night. And what ends up happening is now when they fill out that form, you want to be on top of them within about 60 seconds to 2 minutes. And by doing that, you will see a big difference in getting people on the phone. Now, I'm going to talk about some other things as well to help you here. So the way the follow-up works is, again, 60 seconds to 2 minutes. You have to be in communication with them. So you need to have software set up like Zapier that can notify you immediately when a lead comes in. If you don't have something like that, then you have to get it because you're never going to know when you got a lead, right? You're going to have to check your account every 2 minutes, and that's not a good way to scale, right? You need a better system than that. So you get the lead notification and you're calling them. If you don't get them on the phone the first time, okay, I would recommend calling them back within about 2 to 3 minutes, maybe five, kind of just depends. A couple of things you want to note. Do they have a voicemail set up? If they don't have a voicemail set up, odds are they don't listen to their voicemail. If they do have a voicemail set up, leave a voicemail. If you didn't leave it on the first one, leave it on the second one. Typically, what my team will do if they have a voicemail on the first one is we will leave a voicemail about why we are calling. So, let's say, hi, John, we got your information for a roofing estimate. Just wanted to follow up and see what's going on with your roof. You can give us a call back at X, the number, etc. And, we leave our name and everything. And so now that person has the voicemail and they will either call right back or not. Now, if we left the voicemail in the first call, then we're probably not going to call them back in 5 minutes. In the next 5 minutes, however, we'll send them a text message because again, they could be busy. So we'll just send them a text. Hi, we got your inquiry for the roofing, estimate. What's going on with your roof? I find starting the conversation is better than putting pressure on people. So another way to word that would pressuring it would be to say, when can I have someone come by our house? That's a little bit more pressure that you're putting on someone, even though it seems like has to be the end result. You have to get the person to open up a little bit about what the problem is and why they need people to come out. So usually they'll call you right back, but if not, they'll just go over text. Maybe they're working. Now, if you still haven't gotten them on the phone, where do we go now? We go to Facebook Messenger because we just have access to their start a conversation. So we basically send them a message, a gentle message. Hi, this is so and so. We got your information. What seems to be, the situation? What's going on? That you have to word yourself, like I said. But typically, wording like that works really well. Just keep it pretty specific, right? If it's a roof, if it's a fence, if it's a window, like what's the situation? What are they looking for? And the whole goal of these communications is to what? Is to book an appointment. So you don't want to keep, like, even on the phone, you don't want to have, this is something we learned in sales a long time ago. You don't want to have conversation that just goes and goes and go. And guess, listen, sometimes you're going to have people that do that. I mean, it's not often, right? But sometimes you're going to have a person that just wants to talk. Let them talk. right? But the whole idea is once someone concludes what they're saying, you obviously want to tie it back to the direct outcome. Great, let me have the estimator come out, sometime this week. Every day is a little different. That's a whole other topic about booking appointments, but to just give you a quick rundown, because if you're not getting people on the phone and you get them on the phone and you're messing up the phone call, well, you're not going to have a high appointment rate. So to give you a quick rundown of how that works is, especially in the home services space, if you want to look at your week. Most companies are not doing appointments on Sunday, but if you are, that's up to you. But you want to look at your week, that your week basically ends on Friday and starts on, let's just say, Saturday. That makes any sense. So, for instance, if a lead comes in, let's say Friday, you would say to someone, can I have the estimator come out, unless it's an emergency, but can I have the estimator come out tomorrow or sometime next week? But if you just and only say, can I have someone come by today? The odds are they have a life, they're busy. So they'll probably say no. Then where do you go from there? Now you're constantly floating around and you look like you're not busy as a business. And so you come off a little bit more, a little less credible to them. So that's why you always leave it open ended. How is maybe tomorrow or next week? Now, if it came in on Saturday, it would obviously be, can I have the estimator come by sometime next week? Now, if the lead comes in on Monday, it would be always the next 48 hours. How does Tuesday or Wednesday look for you? Now, if they say yes, then you would say, and some people might even say yes, when, then you would go back and look and direct them. Do you prefer morning or afternoon? This is very basic stuff. If you hear that noise in the background, there are cranes. If you live in Florida, or at least where I live, cranes are pretty big. But anyway, that logic, right, is basically the concept of booking the appointment. A lot of people mess this up, so it's important to make note of, because what ends up happening is now you're getting leads, but you don't know how to book them into appointments. So you think this 80% that we're achieving is not realistic. It is very realistic, but you have to know how to communicate effectively, right? How is this week or next week? And again, you may have a system that works. If it's working for you, great. But this is what works really well. Our clients implement it as well. Some might just go by and say, listen, let me come by, give me your address, I'll be there. It's really up to you. And then that's it. It's really not rocket science, right? But I wanted to break it down because I know a lot of people struggle with generating leads on Meta. Again, we did not go over having a good offer. We did not go over ad copy. And oh, let me talk about this. So let me talk about the time where I tested a different form system and it did not work. What I mean by it did not work is we generated leads, but our getting people on the phone was like 10, 20%. Okay. Number one, it started with the ad. It was a different ad. It was a different headline on the ad. It was not necessarily directional and or transactional in a way. So if anybody knows how I like to run ads, I like to run ads a certain way where they're a little bit more transactional in a sense for home services, because then I get people in the buying mindset. But then in addition to that, when people came to the form, we were just asking them questions in relation to the problem. So, like let's say it's roofing, for instance. Maybe we're asking questions about their roof problem, not necessarily are you looking to get your roof repaired or replaced, right? So in essence, if someone is having leaks in their roof, let's say we ask the question, is your roof leaking? Um, do you spot holes in your roof or damage on your roof? And they're just saying yes to this and yes to that, and they're submitting a form. Well, a little bit more directional would be, do you want to get your roof repaired or replaced? Or not asking that question at all, right? Taking the question out and going, hey, what's your number? And then changing this, because it didn't say get a free quote, it said something else, to get a free quote and then serving. So all of these small, they maybe look small to you, but they matter, because what they see is why they're filling out the form and why they're not filling out the form. Think about it. You're thinking, oh, my ad is not good. Maybe it needs a couple of tweaks, right? But is it because they're thinking that they have to get a quote? This is a free quote, so they don't have to pay for it. Maybe you're not doing free quotes. So if you're not doing a free quote, maybe you put in what you're running. And if it doesn't work, change it. But those things make a big difference. And I compared it because I thought, let me see, let me just kind of test and see, will we get, better results with that angle? And it didn't work that well. So this approach here works very well. It's something we've been doing for over 3.5 years. Test it out for yourself, see how it goes for you. I do think that if you're so where this could face differences, let's say you are a dental office, a chiropractor, you're a business, a physical brick and mortar business, and people need to come to you. So that would be different because now essentially they're getting something for free, right? They're getting a free consultation or a discounted consultation or whatever it may be. But now it's not giving what is your address? It's now when can you come in, right? We're booking appointments. So the transaction has changed. The transaction is now time. When do they have time to come in? Can they actually come in? So there's a couple of other variables with that. So when you're marketing something like that, there's something called the reward system. And essentially, again, I'm not going to give it to you, but essentially you want to find a way to reward the user and or make them transact. So in other words, make them pay for the consultation when you have them on a phone. I know some people have done that, like for chiropractic and whatnot. So they'll take the deposit, which basically now they feel committed to the appointment, and or a reward system where when they come in, the reward of what they're getting or could get is a lot higher than them missing the appointment, right? So they're like, hey, I really want to get this thing, so I'm going to come in. You have to figure that out for yourself. Obviously, if you're working with me, um, we would give you what works, but again, you would have to figure those components out. So there's just different things you have to think about based on your niche, your industry, and how people would respond to your advertisements to number one, get them on the phone, and then number two, to get to their property or get them to come to your business or what have you. All right. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section below, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye for now.